So our group chose the topic of surrogacy, and we're going to look into how it's an ethical gray area. The group consists of myself, Mary Hitchcock,
and Marie Breitling,
Jen Bryant,
and Rachel Creer.
So what is surrogacy? Basically, a surrogate mother is used for the purpose of caring and giving birth to a child for another couple, because the couple could possibly be infertile or they're unable to conceive or carry a child on their own in the natural manner. So they look at a bunch of different options to look at what they could do. And allowing surrogacy in our culture does call for a lot of new issues regarding ethical situations. Some religious affiliations see it as being unnatural, that, God made you that way, so you should stay the way God made you. For the involvement of the gestational mother, there are legal questions that come up, such as will she have any contact with the child after birth? For the child's identity, their self-identification may be questioned once they know that they came from a surrogate mother. However, whether or not surrogacy is ethical or unethical, the argument of its costs and benefits should be identified and should be discussed regarding the potential risks and dole. Following in this discussion, surrogacy is explored in every facet, from potential medical interventions it introduces to implicated costs it will have in the healthcare field. And then she goes and sees the doctor and finds out that it's almost impossible for her to conceive a child on her own. During the movie, she does look into other options, such as adoption, but isn't a candidate. And the movie just really shows the bond that the surrogate family and the mother create. They go to counseling together, and it shows how the family can't control what the surrogate mother is doing. And then it brings in some of the legal and ethical implications that might be associated. So it's a pretty good movie to check out if you're interested in this topic.
Now we're going to discuss some of the benefits of surrogacy. The most apparent benefit attached is to the consideration is the chance that it offers couples, for one reason or another, those couples that can't have a child on their own. It could be an inherent desire in most individuals to push their bloodline forward, both to continue their own lineage and in the progression of the human race as a whole. In addition, surrogacy allows this desire to be accessible to all individuals, regardless of their own capabilities in the realm of reproduction. For many, adoption is also an option, and it's definitely one that's admirable, but surrogacy opens the door to raise a child that still shares that same genetic code as a parent. Something that we found in our research, according to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, was their discussion of both pros and cons of surrogacy. And they stated, in the United States, it is the freedom to decide whether and when to conceive or to bear a child. It's a highly valued and protected. So thus, there have been some that have argued that intended parents and surrogate mothers should be free to cooperate in procreating, at least in cases of medical needs and where care is taken to avoid harming others, especially for the prospective child.
Some opponents of surrogacy. Many concerns revolving around surrogacy are based almost entirely in the possible emotional and psychological effects of the practice. Questions are raised in regards to the impact that surrogacy could have on both the prospective family and the surrogate mother. What happens when the surrogate mother decides that she wants to keep the child? How profound will the emotional damage be to the child in the event that a custody dispute develops? And how will the practice affect the existing children of the surrogate mother? The practice allows for the possibility to affect the mother's stress levels at home, most noticeably at the time of relinquishment, and can lead to a negative association with the act of reproduction. These children and society as a whole may be harmed by the perception that reproduction is trivialized by transactions and that translate women's reproductive capacities and the infants that result into commodities to be bought and sold. Additionally, the chance that the surrogate mother will possibly be exploited exists. Often these arrangements take place between parties with unequal power, education, and economic status. Opponents of the practice point to the idea that if a fee must be paid to the surrogate mother, then only affluent couples will be able to seek such services, leading to a class barrier in surrogacy.
So ethical principles surrounding surrogacy. Kim Amor discusses these ethical principles in an overview of surrogacy around the world in one of her articles, and she builds up on the idea that most concerns stem from the question of whether it is a woman's right to reproduce for oneself, or if financial gain versus altruism creates an ethical dilemma, which one is a genetic link to this? Oh my gosh, can we pause? All right, back to our Amor quote. She builds on the idea that most concerns stem from the question of whether it is a woman's right to reproduce for someone else, if financial gain versus altruism creates an ethical dilemma, and whether a genetic link to the surrogate mother, surrogate father, or intended parents creates conflict. She says additional ethical issues such as the imperfect fetus or newborn, higher order multiple pregnancies that may require reduction, and medical complications, hypertension, are all possibilities that may occur and present great strife for all parties involved. The lack of a standard monitored process only serves in adding to the uncertainty of whether surrogacy is the right choice. She also mentions there are concerns by some of women carrying pregnancies for remuneration, often termed as a womb to rent, to obtain birth certificates that document legal parentage for the intended versus birth parents.
So beyond the fact that surrogate mothers cannot be forced to hand over the child in an event that they have a change of heart, it leads to costly and exhausting legal procedures. In addition, there is a rising popularity of surrogacy could point to the potential rise in general costs of health care. As the techniques for assisted reproduction steadily move forward, the incidence of surrogacy matches pace. Time and research have shown that the assisted reproduction leads to a higher likelihood of multiple fetuses. In the instance that this does occur, the probability of premature birth rises sharply. And you'll see quoted on the slide, the incidence of low birth weight infants rose from 3.3% in the single births to 29.6% in twins, and then 33.3% in triplets born through IVF surrogacy. And that's coming from Parkinson's article that we saw located that was written in 1999. When premature birth occurs, the typically low birth weight is often in its association causes various medical complications, including a higher rate of birth defects, childhood cancers, genomic imprinting disorders, cerebral palsy, and developmental delay. Although it should be noted that studies analyzing the development and performance of children conceived by IVF suggest that in long term they are generally healthy and do not differ cognitively, and their performance is also similar from children conceived without assistance. However, with the continual increase in couples choosing surrogacy, it can only be assumed that the possibility for those complications to occur will arise as well. In the event that this occurs, these children will require additional ongoing medical care, leading to higher medical costs and more time and attention required by medical professionals who are already being stretched thin.
So, as nurses, we have a really great opportunity at this time to look into this growing field because it is growing very quickly, and we have a really great influence. So the implications that surrogacy will have on the practice of nursing do vary and fall on the end of both spectrums. Nurses will need to promote and increase awareness for the need of both parties to be fully informed on all possible risks and complications related to the surrogacy. We've talked about a few of these things already. Nurses will also look to and encourage the general public to donate more egg and sperm cells in an effort to remove any restrictions created by barriers in income, race, sexual orientation, or more of many other class-defining terms. So basically things that make it unavailable for everybody involved. Maggie Kirk, Senior Research Fellow at the School of Nursing and Midwifery at the University of Glamorgan in New Zealand, suggests that future nurse education needs to embrace not only genetics and reproductive technologies, but also applied ethics. So she really takes a stand on knowing the ethics behind this discussion. New Zealand already has taken measures to call for regulation, or at least clear national guidelines on semen provision because of growing concerns about difficult ethical decisions related to assist conceptions, or other progressive countries will need to follow suit to accommodate this rising trend, as it only looks to continue building in the future. So they really support having more guidelines and laws to help regulate this new business, I guess you could call it.
So in the final analysis, we can see that the benefits of surrogacy are clear. It is evident. It offers the chance of extending one's lineage. It allows parents to parent a child that shares their own DNA. However, concerns will still remain with the ethical dilemma and the lack of the standard defined guidelines that protect both surrogates, the surrogate mothers, and the prospective parents. For it or against it, statistics have shown that the trend of in vitro fertilization surrogacy continues to increase, which means that for those in the healthcare profession, like us, the time to have an open and honest discussion is now. Regardless of one's opinion on the practice, it will continue to occur, and our primary duty should be to create an environment that focuses on the emotional and physical health of all involved.
So that kind of wraps up the portion of our presentation. The next couple of slides, we'll just kind of go over the references that we used. And then there's one more reference slide. And with that, we conclude our presentation, and we thank you for your time.